Welcome to the KUMB Mod Pod, a podcast, or should that be Modcast, where the KUMB moderating team come together to chew the fat and mull over the latest happenings in the world of football. This week, joining me on the show, which just happens to be episode 8, are Rio, Gnome, and Big Palermo.
Evening all.
So, welcome one and all. Good to see you all again. No special guests this week as we're saving them all for the new season, which translates to I forgot to book anyone. But anyway, we hope we can.
The new season start yesterday.
Yes,
it's professionalism people tune in for.
Incredible. This show just oozes it, doesn't it?
Yes.
So just the four of us tonight, anyway, the original KUMB team. And so it is that we'll kick off the show with a look at, in the words of Preview Percy, the wild and wacky world of association football in a new section imaginatively entitled A Week's a Long Time in Football. It's been a busy week as the domestic season finally concluded, some 11 months after it began. Loads of stuff happening. We're going to begin with something quite close to home, and that was the unveiling of Michail Antonio as the Player of the Month. Rio, great stuff. A West Ham player winning that coveted award.
Yeah, absolutely. Thoroughly well deserved and all. Was it 8 goals in 10 games? Absolute amazing return. Well deserved, Mickey. Long may he continue.
Yeah, good stuff. Interesting. There was an article I was reading in The Athletic this week where apparently one of his former trainers was laughing at the fact he was called Michail. Apparently he was always known as Michael back in the day. So I'm not quite sure when that changed, but an interesting tidbit thrown in. No, Michail Antonio, welcome to the show, buddy. Michail Antonio winning the deserved, really, yeah?
Yeah, showing. I don't know who decides these things, but so often it's sort of which Liverpool player we're going to give it to this week. Just for once, it was I don't think anyone could argue with it. Just the sheer number of goals, and even when he wasn't scoring, he was causing sort of problems for opponents. We almost forgot we didn't have any strikers, didn't we? But no, hats off. Yeah, salute and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, been on fire, hasn't he, the last few weeks? Pinky, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, thanks. And as for Antonio, sell him now. I mean, he's run out of goals now. We've had them all. We've had his best month, and he's at peak value. Crystal Palace, make that call. You want to. So 45, 50 million shots, they can have him.
Sounds about right.
What can you do with him? What can you do? He can be brilliant or terrible, but usually not in between. But in fairness, since the restart, he's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And dare I say it, without his contribution, we'd probably be in the Championship right now. So well done, Michail.
There's a guy who sits behind me at home matches, and I think his name, what's his name? Austin. He's bizarrely, his day job, one of his jobs is he's a singer in the Essex Blues Brothers tribute band, and he can't stand Antonio. I'm just wondering. It's a shame we haven't been able to go to matches. I'd just be wondering what he'd be thinking at the moment, because he gives Antonio dogs abuse every single game, and just a shame we can't get him on.
Surely you burst it
or
something like sweet goal Antonio instead of sweet home Chicago. Just to really rub it into the fella.
It reminds me of a guy I used to sit next to at Upton Park who had a similar dislike of Carlton Cole, and it was almost to the point where even if Cole scored a goal, he wouldn't even celebrate. He was that determined to dislike the guy. But irrational hatred of our own footballers. There's a topic for another week, one we could probably touch on. Moving on, in a week's a long time in football, we had an FA Cup final at the weekend. Did anyone notice? I'm sure Arsenal fans noticed because they won. Came from a goal behind to beat Chelsea. Pinky, did you tune into the game, and what did you think of it as a spectacle?
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought Chelsea would win before kick-off. But fair play to Arsenal. what's that? Their 4th FA Cup in half a dozen seasons, something like that.
Is it really?
You know, and deserved winners. But without supporters there, it's a very grim affair, isn't it? The Empire Stadium, you know, you've got an enormous ground, and it must be soul destroying for players. You know, you think about it, if you're a player, and that is the only medal you ever win in your career, and you've done it in front of 3 men at the goal. It's a shame. So in that context, I'm pleased it was Arsenal.
No, that kind of reminds me of your views on Liverpool winning the title, I think, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was. Chelsea Arsenal. It was like, couldn't they both lose? But no, I mean, the one thing, and I know it's Harvey Horse of mine, but didn't Anthony Taylor have a really good game? Not. I mean, it wasn't just the sending off, but just all the way through. He got the final. It's his 2nd FA Cup final, and the reason given was that it would be unfair to any other referee doing their one and only FA Cup final that their wife and family couldn't be there to see it. I mean, really, is that how we're selecting referees now? Just.
That's how bad they are, I guess. That they
12 minutes in and Gnome's into the refs already. This is remarkable.
I thought I'd give you a pause on it, but he had a shocking game, and I mean, I think Arsenal were going to win it anyway. I think Chelsea were, to use a phrase that Pinky's used before. Lampard keeps getting found out, and but It was great when you see a referee behaving that badly, sort of thing.
It was Rio. As far as sending offs go, I mean, it was one of the weakest ones, let alone in an FA Cup final, but just in football in general. It was Kovacic.
Yeah.
I can never say that. I don't know why I always struggle with that. Ridiculous, wasn't it? I mean, as Gnome says, Taylor had a mare there, didn't he?
Yeah, but you've got to think. It's a Chelsea player. Do you need any?
Doesn't matter.
Just get rid of them. No, I think the whole day was summed up. I mean, FA Cup day used to be like final day. Used to be one of the most poignant moments of the sporting calendar.
Yep.
Everyone just stopped for it. A much loved world footballing tradition is now so undervalued by the clubs themselves. That what does that mean on Saturday? Really, You're playing a competition under 2 different rules. You get teams seeing that reserve sides from the 3rd round onwards, and not just Premier League sides, Championship sides and all. And at the end of the day, you're letting Arsenal win on a regular basis. I mean, this is the final nail in the coffin for the Cup,
Yeah, talking about Championship sides, there was another final this week featuring Fulham and Brentford, which was also staged at Wembley and also staged in front of an empty ground, which was a very, very surreal situation for what is still termed the richest game in world football. Gnome, did you happen to catch the game last night and watch Scotty Parker engineer a return to the Premier League for the Cottagers?
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest to go. I was kind of
no, it wasn't.
Channel hopping between that and the cricket. At which point, if I could point out, I am actually half Irish, so I couldn't lose the cricket. But it wasn't the greatest game. I watched all of extra time, and I think we're talking about people being found out. Scotty Parker worked out how to nullify Brentford, and did it supremely well. Clever free kick to spot the keeper. Who'd gone walkabout. Lord knows. I thought Roberto was back for a minute there, and it was a good second goal at the end as well that killed it off. Lovely move. Pleased for Scotty. It's one of those people that when I used to go around the press rooms and all that, it's one of those people that you never heard a bad word said of. And so really pleased for him. It's
another London club back in the Premier League must be a good thing. I suppose it would have been either way, of course.
Yeah.
But, Fulham, Fulham. Have we got anything to worry about with them back in the Premier League next season? We've traditionally done relatively well against them, haven't we, in recent seasons? It's been a good source of points for West Ham.
Yeah, very much so. And let's hope that continues. I'm delighted for Scott getting up. I'm delighted that we've got another London away day. It's a good day out at Fulham. Plenty of nice pubs around the area. Lovely setting on the river. I just hope it's not in bloody December or January like it normally is, and it absolutely freezes your nuts off there. The last time
we were there, it was cold, it was wet.
Yeah, I was basically sitting in the Thames. I was behind the goal originally, and the day before, West Ham ticket off his strike saying, "Oh, your tickets ain't valid. We've shifted you." And I'm sure I was catching 2 boats at one point. It was ridiculous.
I suppose the boat trips, the guys running those are going to be rubbing their hands together, of course, because we can all now get on the voyage down to Putney once again.
Well, last few years, Chelsea, we've done it for Chelsea when, Chaz has done it for Chelsea when we played them and Fulham haven't been around. Because the last 2 Chelsea away games, not this season, but the previous 2 Chelsea away games, both occurred on my birthday. So you can imagine what being on a boat was at that point.
And people still say it's a fixture computer. We all know it's rigged. Yeah, matches arranged around your birthday calendar.
Pinky, that final last night, did you see it? And what did you think of the genius tactical decision by Scotty Parker to look for that opportunity if a free kick arose? Brilliant, wasn't it?
I'm not having it. Look, it was a shocking game. It was a shocking game between 2 really poor teams, and both of them. After 10 minutes, I'm looking at thinking that's one of the 3, relegation slots filled next season. I was kind of wishing both teams could get promoted because then there'd be 2 of them filled. And it's a bit of a shame really, because what I was really looking at last night wasn't a gap between the Championship and the Premier League. It was a chasm, because undoubtedly they're 2 of the better teams in the Championship. But you're looking at it and you're thinking, just to survive in the top flight, they're going to have to chuck so much money at it just to try and hang on in there, and it's a real shame. The free kick, I actually felt a bit sorry for the keeper. What a wally! I mean, geez, I'm looking at that thinking he's probably already on his way to Rush Green, totally unable to resist the bargain, kind of thing. But he'll have to live that for the rest of his career. And I thought, fair play to I think it was Mitrovic, went up and consoled him at full time, which I thought was a nice touch. Because I think back to when Liverpool's keeper in the European Cup final had a mare a couple of seasons ago, and not a single Liverpool player, not Jurgen Klopp, nobody went to console the keeper after he had a mare. So I thought that was a nice touch last night, but generally speaking, a poor game of football. I mean, just poor. Scott Parker, he's the most, how can I put this, politically astute person. I don't mean politics, but he plays the right card every time, and he'll go far within the FA.
Future England manager, perhaps.
Yeah, and based on nothing more than keeping his nose clean, saying the right things, and always saying thank you to your mum when she passes the cake, kind of thing.
You heard it here first, folks. There you go. Pinky saying Scotty Parker for a potential England manager. I think you're right, actually. That's a really good shout, I think.
Yeah, he's just got that, he conducts himself very well, which I think is important if you want to be the England manager. And maybe 10, 12 years down the line, that's where you'll see him.
Yeah, good shout. Conducted himself slightly better than one of his players who dropped the F-bomb during the interview in post-match. I totally agree with you, actually, about the Fulham team there. I mean, I think one of the players I was looking at, and it was the midfielder that we were looking at a couple of years ago. His name's totally gone.
Tom Kearney.
Kearney, of course, that's it. Thanks, Rio. just looked like a fish out of water last night. And you're sort of thinking, if that's, the creme de la creme of the squad up there, him and Mitrovic, I suppose, are really the two. Yeah, I agree with you, Pinky. I think they've got grounds to worry, and much of a huge rebuilding job required down at the Craven Cottage this summer if they're going to compete next year. So thank you, guys. The two final
news for us in that. Okay, because they've bounced back.
Yeah.
We get a slice of the parachute payment they don't need. So we get about £2.5 million as a club out of all that.
Well, I suppose that will make up for losing the 15th place to Brighton on the last day of the season then. So every cloud, I suppose, and all that. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving swiftly on, still in this last week. It's a very strange one. Bournemouth. Now, was anyone expecting this? Eddie Howe wasn't sacked. One of those cases of leaving by mutual consent. Rio, did that surprise you at all? Eddie Howe going?
I think it's the way of modern football now, isn't it? As soon as you get relegated, there's question marks.
Yeah.
He's done a wonderful job there. He's got a good footballing ethos, despite the fact that they're a right niggly bunch of arseholes at Bournemouth, trust me. But he's obviously moving on. And I think the next club that he goes to is the benchmark of his career. He's obviously not going to go to any of the top 5 or 6. Who is he going to go to? And it's a real big question mark. Will he ever survive outside the Bournemouth bubble? Now, this is the thing. He failed at Burnley. I've got question marks, as I mentioned on previous episodes, about his tenure at Bournemouth. But the next move he makes is a real statement about where he stands in the footballing world.
Good stuff. Pinky, I think he was an Everton fan as a boy. Do you potentially see him perhaps ending up there, or do you think that's too big a job for him at the moment? Do you see him more like a Watford or something like that?
Only if he buys a season ticket. Let's not kid ourselves. I think Ancelotti quite enjoys the £11 million a season that he gets for the job.
Yeah, tough job.
So he's going to try and cling on in there. But no, I think Howe probably stayed too long at Bournemouth. I think all managers these days, sadly, have a kind of shelf life. Wenger at Arsenal being the epitome of that. Wins them league titles, wins them oodles of FA Cups. Gets them in Europe season after season, and then has to endure banners going up saying it's Arsenal, not Arsenal. And Howe very similar, I think, at Bournemouth. So for me, probably stayed a season too long. The accusation that's been made all over our forum this week is that he spent a lot of money.
What did you think about that?
I don't think it's fair comment, because if there are some clubs, because they're at the periphery of really what's going on, to get any kind of a caliber of player to either stay or join, you've got to chuck money at them. I mean, can you imagine the sales pitch? I'm mindful of when Kevin Keegan swayed Andy Cole to join Newcastle United, I think it was. And he was saying, well, Newcastle's nearer London than, I think, Sunderland or something like that, and he said footballers believe that kind of thing. Can you imagine the sales pitch Eddie Howe's got to make to players? If you like him a bit mature, the Bournemouth nightclubs are packed full of, kind of that sort of thing. And
the Isle of Wight's a lovely place to holiday, that kind of thing.
But what is there to do in Bournemouth? And you're playing in front of a packed 11,000 every week or whatever it is. So you've almost got to bribe players to actually be playing in a. We all like the stadium, but if you're a top class performer, you'd be thinking, last week it was Anfield, the week before it was Old Trafford, but don't worry, we've got 3 games on the spin now at home at down here in Bournemouth. It's not much of a draw. So I think the managers had to chuck money at players. They'll recoup it. I think they knocked out one of the lads, as Aki, whatever his name is, to a Man City, 40 million shots. They'll probably need to sell 2 or 3 others just to balance the books. In terms of where he'll go, Palace, I'd say. Crystal Palace is where he'll end up. I can't see Roy Hodgson, dare I say it, even starting next season. There you go.
What is he, 73 now, Hodgson?
He's looking it. He's looking it. I mean, Gordon carries his age very well there, but Hodgson is struggling. He's struggling. So I'd say Howe to Palace would be the obvious one.
Okay, good shout. Good shout. Gnome. Eddie Howe, of course, gone as we know. What about Bournemouth? Do you think they're likely to come straight back up, or do you think that's it for them now? They're looking at oblivion in the Championship for the next few years.
I think the latter. Funny enough, I wasn't really surprised when it all happened.
Okay.
But having been spent last weekend down in Hampshire, obviously you get the BBC local news, and it was a massive story, and everybody seemed sort of shocked and flummoxed by it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, why? Why did you expect him to stay? But I mentioned this in the past. There are some people who were right at one particular place. And I think with him, as Rio said, it didn't work out at Burnley.
Yeah.
And, he came back and he carried on where he'd left off. So, I mean, Ake, who I'm surprised that City have got him for him. I guess if you're playing for a better club, you'll get a lot more time on the ball. But I don't know. But, yeah, you've got the books to balance, parachute payments or no parachute payments. And it's difficult enough to persuade people to stay there if they're in the Premier League, as people were saying. If you're in the sort of Championship, well, even those grab a granny nights at Bournemouth nightclub, which is every night, even that's not going to seem to.
Yeah, and the club's open in 3 hours, if you don't mind. And
once again, I'll bow to your superior knowledge on that one, team.
I mean, of course, there is. I don't know if he still owns part of it, but there is that Italian restaurant that Harry Redknapp mentioned every 3 pages in his first autobiography. Yeah, Lorenzo's. Yeah.
Is there anyone there known that we might fancy, do you think, from that Bournemouth squad? Or anyone you like particularly?
Struggling. I mean, yeah, maybe Wilson.
Yeah.
What's the young lad? I mean, I'm not sure if we buy him and pick him in, but the young Welsh lad, Brooks. Is it Brooks?
Maybe Brooks.
He shows a bit of talent. Fraser had left before the end of the season, hadn't he?
Yes, he went on the 30th.
Got something about him, but he was one of the refuse-nicks that didn't want to play once his contract were up.
Yeah,
and but it's they're the sort of people that we might end up with.
Yeah.
Like
last-minute jobbies, kind of, rather than songs you go for.
The 2 o'clockers in
yes.
Bournemouth nightclub terminology.
Yes. I'm keen to swiftly move away from this continued reference to the grab a granny nights at Bournemouth nightclubs. And so we're going to move on to grab a cheap signing from the Championship night in the last section of a long time in football, and look at some of our transfer targets, or at least those we've been told our transfer targets this summer. We did learn, of course, earlier today via one particular West Ham blog, which shall remain nameless, that Valon Barami plays for Brentford. I think they might have meant Said Ben Rama, but anyway, I'm fairly certain that Barami's not on his way back to West Ham. A couple of players we have been linked with. Rio, first of all, Easy from Palace. Easy from QPR, who Palace are understood to have had a £12 million bid rejected for. I think Palace are looking for about 16. Surely he's out of our reach, isn't he, at that price?
Well, if Moyes is interested in the Championship players, like has been stated, they don't come cheap. Young British talent doesn't come cheap. So, Ezzy looks like Ezzy Rigby, isn't it, his name? He looks a very good player. Not necessarily what we need at the moment, but he's a good talent. And if we was in need of an attacking midfielder, he'd be the one I'd actually go for.
So you're not convinced that he's the player that we do really need at the moment?
I think we need to strengthen in other areas. I know we've been linked to Matty Cash at Nottingham Forest. So, I mean, fullback's the position that I'd look to strengthen initially.
Yeah.
My only worry there is that the likes of Robinson at Wigan, Cash, they all look identikit players of Fredericks.
Yeah.
The modern day fullback, especially what I've seen there at the Championship, they love to bomb forward, they love to attack. Defending isn't a priority.
Yeah.
And we've got enough of them.
Yeah, you've kind of stolen my thunder a little bit there, because I was just going to come on to the fullbacks that West Ham have been targeting in the summer, which are a couple of guys called Anthony Robinson, obviously not a British fullback, but he apparently has a release clause of £1.5 million. Gnome, you'd think that's right up David Sullivan's Strauss of that one, no?
I still think that if we go to sign him, we'll try and haggle. Yeah, I mean, it was Inter, wasn't it, that were nearly signed him last year? And
I believe it was in January, yes.
Yeah, and it was this year then, January. Seems so long ago.
Last season, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hope the lad's health issues are okay, because it fell through. He had a heart issue, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
Some sort of heart murmur. Yeah, I mean, yeah, £1.5 million would be definitely right up Sullivan Street. I haven't seen enough of the lad to really be able to comment as to how good he is or isn't.
Yeah.
You look at what other clubs have been linked with him, and it seems to be the same few. I think I may be wrong. I've got an inkling in my mind that Palace again.
Have been linked with him. Yeah. Villa too. Villa as well.
It's. I mean, fullbacks. We. I think it's illegal for us to actually put out a modcast without saying we need new fullbacks, isn't it? But we keep saying this, and we're getting linked with players that Palace are being linked with, rather than anybody slightly better, shall we say? And we're talking about the lad at QPR that Rio was just saying, and that smacks completely of well, he's quite good, isn't he? So we'll sign him without any sort of thought as to whether or not he's what we need. You know, it's he's available, he's good, we'll have him. Well, where are you going to put him? You know.
Bit unfair on Moyes, perhaps, that, don't you think? I mean, because we know Moyes has watched him in person a couple of weeks ago.
Sure, but I mean, that's the sort of thing that we've had in the past.
No, absolutely.
Now Moyes has got a sort of whole, a whole 2-minute pre-season to actually try and mould the thing in the way he wants. Then maybe things will change with that. But it has been a typical thing in the past. He's good, we'll sign him.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Okay. We should other fullbacks, of course. We have been, thanks, Gnome, that we have been linked with Matty Cash, as Rio rightly referred to a few moments ago, from Nottingham Forest. There were rumours that we had a £12 million bid rejected back in January. I'm not quite sure how strong they were, but I have someone who works closely with Nottingham Forest who confirmed that there was genuine interest from West Ham there. Whether or not there was a bid or not remains sort of up for debate. But it looks really as if he's another one that's going to be out of our price range, perhaps Pinky at that sort of price. And the other right back, of course, we've been linked with is a guy from River Plate called Gonzalo Montiel, who's valued in the region of around £7 million. Pinky, Argentinian defenders. Fantastic! They're great, aren't they?
Well, I mean, just to go to Cash first of all. I mean, the problem's in the name, isn't it?
Yes.
It's Moyes went to the chairman allegedly and said, I'm really keen. We need Cash, and the chairman said, "Don't we fucking all, son?" But we're in this absurd situation in English football whereby Championship clubs lose millions of pounds every year, and they have one chance to actually take some money out of the big boys, and they do it by overpricing players, You know, seriously, £12 million for a Championship fullback. Seriously, you know, and they wonder why only 7% of the money trickles down into the Championship from the big league.
Yep. Fair point.
Grossly overpriced, and you know, so, and I just don't see it.
Okay, Pinky, we've just lost you for a moment there, buddy.
Argentinian.
No, we seem to have lost you for a moment. Oh, every time I speak, you keep coming back in. We seem to be. Are you there, buddy? Are you there, Pinky? Talk to me.
Shakings before kickoff. You know. Okay, sorry, can you not hear me?
We've got you now.
Yeah.
All the time you were talking intelligently about the defenders. We didn't get any of it, but now we have. So just go back. Yeah, you were just talking about Argentinian defenders before you went a bit.
Yeah, you know, there's two types. They're the ones that are actually really good and the ones that are really crap, and it all depends which kind you get. You know, but you'd normally say an Argentinian player has got some reasonable pedigree. But I've got a real problem signing South Americans.
Yep.
You know, what do we really know about them? What do we, you know, it's all a grey, murky, dodgy market.
Yep.
And I'd avoid anyone from Latin America. I really would. What good has it done us in the past?
Well, I mean, it certainly didn't do us much good in 2006, did it? When we had a certain Lionel Scaloni playing at right back in the cup final. Unless your name's Steven Gerrard, I suppose, who profited awfully well from that dreadful clearance. So give him his credit. Of course, we all know he was under pressure from the Liverpool players that day. But you're absolutely right. Of course, it really is an unknown market in some respects. So,
and I've got to say, where's our money coming from?
Well, this is another question, isn't it? I mean, who are we going to sell first to generate the funds?
You know, it's you know, I generally think the club is skint. I mean, absolutely skint, and you know, it's almost a case of when you're on your uppers, you keep dining in the best restaurants because you don't want your neighbours to know your skin. You know, so we keep putting in bids that will be rejected to create the illusion we've actually got some money, when the reality is, please God, don't let them accept the bid. You know, you know, you'd imagine, you know, good news, we've secured Matty Cash for 12 million, and you know, Solomon going, you must be joking. Where am I going to find that? You know, I mean, honestly.
In the background, there's Eintracht Frankfurt going, guys.
Yeah, we that's another thing. We haven't heard whether or not West Ham have settled that latest bill for, when was it, from
the
June?
last I heard was that we hadn't paid the one that had been under dispute for whatever reason, for contractual reasons, we were told. That one hadn't been paid, and there was another one due in August.
Oh, God.
And Eintracht were pretending to be relaxed, saying, we're sure it's all going to be sorted out and we'll get everything sorted out and squared in August. So
yeah, they clearly hadn't dealt with West Ham's board before, I think you can say, judging by that one. Another player we have, of course, been linked with is Sean Weissman, who plays for Wolfsberger in the Austrian Bundesliga. 24-year-old Israeli forward. I don't know anything. I don't know if any of you guys know anything about Weissman, but he's apparently had a very good season over in Austria. Anyone? No?
No, not heard of him. I suspect, and maybe doing somebody a disservice here, but I'd be willing to bet the preview Percy £2.50 that I'm not. But this is one of the things where a player has a good season and an agent starts saying, you know, well, there's interest from West Ham, so just to get his name in the paper. And one of the things, you know, you say he's Israeli.
Yes.
And one of the things that again, I'm not up to date with it, but you know, what happens when the Brexit transition period finishes? Because at the moment, anybody who's got an EU passport can walk in and and play for the team, play for any team. But 31st December, that strictly speaking is out of the window.
Yep.
Now, anybody who's been here for a few years can apply for settled status. That's fine. But what happens in terms of anybody who's not got settled status, about transfers in? I'm guessing there must be some sort of talks between the FA and the clubs that have happened, but it seems to be a big elephant in the room that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, you mentioned the Argentinian lad, and 1,000,001 Spanish teachers wept at your pronunciation. But
is it a Gonzalo rather than a Gonzalo?
The reason you can often get, but the reason people often go to Argentina to get players in is that there is, I mean, obviously there's a Spanish history there, but there's also a big Italian immigrant descendant population in Argentina. And so, your granddad came from Milan, so you get an Italian passport in Argentina, you can play anywhere in Europe. That's been the case in the past. What happens next?
Okay. Well, we would of course see. Short of inviting a government minister onto the show, I'm not sure we're going to find that out any quicker than anyone else. But I mean, it's a really good point you make. Actually, we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? Come the end of the year. Talking of transfers and signings, I just wondered if there was anyone that West Ham had signed over the years that any of you had sort of thought was going to be really good or really bad, and it turned out that wasn't the case at all. Rio, is there anyone that you can think of that you've been really, really wrong about in terms of West Ham players?
I bet Nick's mine.
Hopefully. I've got one of each, so one good one, one bad one.
Okay.
The good one was Mr. Sheringham.
All right, yeah.
Who, after paying for 3 of the Axis of Evil,
yes,
I didn't want him. I don't want a pensioner. He's too slow, he's whatever. But he turned up trumps, didn't he? 20 goals in 33 games in the Championship.
Absolutely.
And
a bad one?
A little bit of finesse. Bad one. Twice we had him, Lee Bowyer. In a time we was crying out for a box-to-box midfielder with an eye for goal.
Yep.
He turned up, he stunk the place out.
Yes.
And he also brought in Renton with him initially, didn't he? The old protest outside the ground about his dubious past. So, he was bad in every sense of the word.
That's actually a really good shout. I like that, Lee Bowyer. Definitely. I think everybody, was around at the time thought he was going to do a really good job, especially the first time. And he was injured, I think, wasn't he, quite a bit?
Yeah, I think he played 5 games and disappeared, didn't he, with an injury? He was injured most of the time in his second stint as well.
Yes. Yeah, doing a good job now, though. Not really doing that good a job. Of course, they're down in League One, actually, thinking about it. All the fans say he's doing a good job, but anyway, we might have to edit that bit out. Gnome, your thoughts on West Ham transfers? Good ones, bad ones? Anyone you've been really, really badly wrong about?
The one that I was proven wrong about eventually, and but not on the evidence of what I think may have been his first game or one of his very early games was Winston Reid. If you remember, before him we'd had Hayden Fox, who we'd gone through all sorts of sort of gymnastics to try and get a work permit and.
Well, we had to make him marry. Was it a French girl he married?
Oh, there was all sorts of weird, wonderful stuff going on there.
To get a European passport.
And the highlight of his career was peeing into a pot plant at a Christmas party. So when Winston Reid came, really from Denmark, but although he's a Kiwi, he was sort of that whole Denmark-New Zealand thing going on. When he turned up, and I don't know if it was his debut, but it was pretty much one of his early games away at West Brom, and it was like he was like a rabbit in headlights. I don't know if he actually gave away a penalty, but he certainly gave away goals and got away with not giving a penalty in a match. I think we were 3-0 down. We brought it back to 3-2, but still didn't sort of catch up. But he got better, so he proved me wrong. But before that, I thought this is another one where we've gone for an Antipodean And as for one that I thought would be good and wasn't, struggling to think really. We've had lots of disappointing transfers, but none that I ever thought were they're going to really sort of be. You remember the one that you'll remember the interview we did with Scott Duxbury, and where Zola wanted to build a team around that Jimenez.
Yes.
And this was going to be the next best thing and all that. And then
the infamous barbecue, was it not, where they discussed it?
Yeah, the infamous barbecue. So, they'd have been better off just sticking a chef's apron on him and telling him to flip the burger.
That's definitely a good shout. Yeah, thank you. No, Pinky, what about you? You've got a pretty good grasp of West Ham signings and that, but anyone you've sort of fallen foul of and got really badly wrong?
The one that really, really proved me wrong and rammed it right down my throat, no doubt about it, Dean Ashton.
Ooh.
And I wasn't sure about him when he joined.
Okay.
I thought, okay, Pards, you've put the money down. Really wasn't sure about him. But I would say, without a doubt, the best forward we've had at West Ham United, and I'm including Di Canio in this.
Yep.
In the last 20 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
And how the fortune of our club could have been different had he not had the injury. Because it wasn't so much what he put in the net. The goal I always refer to in the Ashton era was Freddie Sears on debut. And if anyone wants to look at it, look at it on YouTube, and you look at the running for Ashton to drag two central defenders out of position, to create a massive hole behind him, at which Sears ran. So he just created the space for Sears just by his movement. And the only other sort of player that really could do that to that level in that sort of era was Hernan Crespo, an Argentinian lad. And he did it against us one night for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Their manager brought Crespo on, and within quarter of an hour, it pulled our centre-backs left, right, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And Lampard, I think, stung straight up the middle and banged two in. So that's that sort of movement. And so Ashton, for me, big old boy, top draw, and much, much better than I ever thought he was going to be. So that was one that he definitely proved me wrong there.
Okay.
In terms of the other way, frankly, the ones that are crap. I mean, there's just loads and loads of them. It's kind of like, come on, who did we owe the favour to? How Elunga, how
Rita.
I mean, do me a favour. How did he get a contract? But he did, and so there you go.
I'm reminded of other South Americans. Do you remember Wally Lopez around the same time?
Oh yeah.
Who was the guy? He played for us. I think it's a cup game at Sheffield Wednesday or something like that.
Yep.
Is it Brian Montenegro or something like that?
That's him. Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
Heavens above! I mean, who got the payment for that?
That had to be a Sully transfer. That one, didn't it?
I mean, was that a deal done in the pub? Was that kind of like a bet? How does it work?
I've just come up with a disappointing one that everybody thought at the time might have been good, actually. And we don't have to go to South America for it either. We're going back a long way, and I was probably just I was a kid at the time, or a teenager. I thought as a kid, Ted McDougall was going to be the dog's nuts and all that when he signed for us. And, he wasn't, basically. And one ruck with Billy Bonds later, we shipped him out. I think he had Norwich, didn't he, after that?
That's it. Was the ruck with Bonzo when he was at West Ham or before he came here?
West Ham.
It was at West Ham.
Yeah.
One of the infamous training ground rows.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to do research on it. I can't remember exactly. I've got a mental image of it happening in the changing room, and it was. I think Greenwood was there at the time, recommended to the board that both players be sold.
Yeah.
And common sense prevailed, and they just got rid of McDougall, who was, it's all very well scoring loads. When you get ridiculous number of goals against Margate in the cup for Bournemouth, but it was noticeable soon. A bit like Howe. As soon as he left Bournemouth, that was his career gone.
Yeah. I think there's another thread there, isn't there? About perhaps about best in-house rucks. I mean, would you choose that? You've got Alvin Martin and Matty Rush. I think had a tear up at Chadwell Heath once, and of course, who can forget John Hartson and Niall Berkovic, the one that was actually captured on cameras on the day Sky were at the training ground, and the reason why Harry Redknapp actually banned the cameras from the training ground following that incident. Yeah, perhaps we can revisit that one in times to come. Of course, who is it? Was it Keegan and Bremner? Was it Bremner?
Oh no, Charity Shield.
Not West Ham, obviously, but
it was the first time I think they transmitted it live.
Yeah,
and they had a big row. They both got sent off, and they just carried on as they were walking off, didn't they? And,
possibly, yeah.
Norman Hunter and Franny Lee was the other good one.
Oh yes, yeah, they were fist flying on that one, weren't they? On that particular occasion.
Basically, Franny Lee was walking off, and then I think he described it as he noticed there was a bit of blood in his shirt, and he put his tongue into his lip and found where his lip had been split and saw red. So he just turned around and went on Hunter again. And I can't remember which one of those it was, but there's a bit where the referee's sorting out, and there's a big melee of players in the middle. Referee's trying to sort out. Somebody actually comes up behind him, taps him on the back, and says, "Look over there. There's another ruck going on over there."
I think that is the latter one. I'm fairly certain that is the Hunter and Franny Lee incident. Which, if you haven't seen it, have a look on YouTube. It is on there, and we're not going to advocate violence here, but it's a funny one. It's definitely worth looking at. But so
the ultimate, of course, is look up the Battle of Santiago.
Oh, of course.
It's only, I mean, the violence on the pitch is brilliant, but the best bit of all is the David Coleman introduction to it.
Good evening. The game you're about to see is the most stupid, appalling, disgusting and disgraceful exhibition of football possibly in the history of the game.
It's genuine disgust, and you just wouldn't get that from commentators today.
This was the 1962 World Cup. It was Italy and
Chile.
It was Chile, the hosts.
And I mean, the Battle of Santiago. It really, it's not. That's not hyperbole. That is an actual brilliant description. It was poor old Ken Aston was the referee.
Yes.
And it was the direct instigator of that's what gave him the idea of having red and yellow cards, so you could tell who'd been sent off.
It really is something else, isn't it? That video. I mean, the players are literally kicking each other, and they're not trying to hide it. It's fully fledged assault, basically.
And the Chilean police, which, as is the want of certain countries in Latin America, was at the time, have a very militaristic look about them. Are on the pitch as well, sorting stuff out. So it looks like the army are coming in.
Yeah, so there you go. If you haven't seen that before, the Battle of Santiago from the 1962 World Cup Finals, Chile versus Italy, one of the most, I think that's what he actually said, one of the most disgraceful episodes or games of football I've ever seen in my life. Something along those terms. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for your recollection. Actually, I was just going to say, Pinky, you reminded me of my one. I was struggling to think of someone for this, and then you mentioned Freddie Sears, and I was thinking that day when he scored on his day, he had scored bucket loads, hadn't he, for the reserves prior to that. We were all itching for him to be given an opportunity in the first team, and Zola, I think it was it Zola or Kirbishley? Might have been Kirbishley, actually, but whoever it was brought him in that day for his debut against Blackburn, scored the winning goal, and we all thought we've got another Tony Cottee on our hands here, and I think he scored one more goal for West. Might not have actually scored another one.
Anyway, two, I think, in the end. But
two. He got two more. Anyway,
and it's a shame, and it just goes to show. I mean, for all the for all the talk, we've discussed the academy and why does it exist and things like that. Just how tough it is to produce a first team footballer, whether it's West Ham United or any other club, to actually get a player that's good enough to start week in, week out in the top flight of English football. It really isn't easy. It really isn't bloody easy. And and Sears has had a decent career. He's been paid as a professional footballer. He's in his 30s now, and he's done what we'd have all loved to have done, but he wasn't quite good enough for the top level. And but no shame in that. He's had a good career. Good for him.
Yeah, not at all. Zavon Hines, I guess, another one from that era that we thought could go on to do it. Rio, was it Ipswich? Freddie Sears scored the phantom goal for when the ball hit the stanchion at the back, and it was a clear goal, and the referee didn't give
Palace
it.
at the time, I think.
Okay.
He was on loan at Palace, and that it's often said, "Oh, send a player out on loan and he'll get experience and all that." I think that's what ruined Sears.
Well, yeah.
And he was all set up to go on loan somewhere that played a bit of football, and it'd have been ideal for it. And then at the last minute, it got changed. He went to Palace, who were under Warnock at the time, and he never recovered from that. He really didn't.
Yeah.
Sliding doors moment, didn't he? Because the game after the Blackburn debut, we was away at Goodison Park.
That's right.
And he got put through on goal and he hit the posts. And you just think, if it had gone in, what would have happened?
Yeah. You're
Sorry.
right, Gnome, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a really good point, actually. Yes, he did, didn't he? He was, an inch either way, and it could have been 2-2, and his whole career may have taken off from that moment. But it just didn't seem to go right for him, did it, Pinky?
Well, Hines, who you mentioned,
yes,
there, he had an injury as well. And an injury really did for him. He had the quickest feet I've seen on a player since Jermaine Defoe in terms of being able to shift the ball from one to the other. And again, had he just not had the injury, I think he would have gone on to be a decent player. And it just goes to show, the people will go on about the players are overpaid and this, that, and the other. In the blink of an eye, it's all over. It's all over. And you look at those young players that we try to bring through, clubs by that stage have invested 12, 13 years in them. And one tackle, one challenge, or maybe they just don't grow that last 3 inches for an half an hour. And they just don't quite make it.
Yeah.
Really hard stuff.
Yeah. Who was it? Was it Jamie Carragher that he ruined that day at the bowling in Rio?
Hines. I mean, it's not difficult to make Carragher look stupid, but that particular day, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, Carragher's an embarrassment anyway. But
you're not a fan then?
Not really, no. I don't like people who spit at kids myself. Call me old-fashioned.
Yeah. Another. Yeah, as you rightly say, Pinky. Another one that I first saw Zavon Hines. I've just been looking this up actually, I'm trying to remember when it was, but it was in a pre-season friendly against Grays, which typically West Ham United lost 2-1. Lee Bowyer was playing that day as well. Funnily enough, the reason I went down there, my main area of interest is because we had a trialist going back to dodgy West Ham players and signings. Now, who remembers a guy called Michail Constantinou? No, I didn't think you would. This was the guy that we were trialing at the New Rec on that day. That I first saw Zavon Hines, and I think he was sent back to Greece or wherever it was, at Cyprus perhaps, that he came from after that, because he certainly didn't impress. But yes, a whole litany of crap players and dodgy signings we've sort of looked back on there.
I recall
very good ones too.
Michelander's debut in wherever it was, and I don't think we ever saw him again. We picked him up, I think, on a pre-season tour.
Yeah. I can remember going. There was something I was at that Pardew and Peter Grant were there, And they were asked about Michail, and Pardew was saying, well, he's a bit raw, but he said he's tall, he's fast, and Peter Grant chipped in with, he's cheap.
It wasn't one of those Bournemouth nightclubs for the elderly that we were referring to earlier, was it, by perchance?
I don't know. I've never been into a nightclub in Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, you say that. You say that.
I never
we believe you.
Southampton, maybe. I never quite got down as far as Bournemouth when I was living in Hampton.
Anyway, moving swiftly on, thank you guys for your recollections there. I'm going to move on to a section we are calling the funniest thing you've ever seen at a football match. So it could actually tie in with what we've just been talking about, actually. But I'm going to start with Gnome on this one. The funniest or the strangest thing you've ever seen at a football ground, please.
There's a couple of things leap to mind. One that came to mind earlier on when we were talking about Fulham away. And I can't remember the result of the game, and this must be about 8 or 9 years ago, maybe. And it was a cold, wet, blustery day, and you had 22 players on the pitch, all of whom were doing a reasonable impersonation of somebody who'd been told the laws of association football the previous day, and it was a dreadful game. And there were a load of these little one-man dinghies going past. You can see the river from the away section. So these things were going past one by one. And it was a bit blustery, and one of the buggers capsized, much to the amusement of the crowd. And so everyone looks across and saw this thing going down, and a big chant of going down, going down, going down. And of course, anybody else on the other three sides wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. But there was that, and then there was the strange case season before last now, where this woman came out standing on a sort of balcony to the left of the away section at Watford, and the poor woman was the spitting image of Arsene
Wenger.
There's only one Arsene Wenger, and she was just looking over. Everyone's sort of like, "That's one Arsene Wenger," completely oblivious to what it was all about. And then I think somebody came up and had a word with her, and she went back inside. But she had the glasses and everything. And I somewhere, I don't know, somebody must have a photograph of it. So,
excellent stuff.
Yeah. Well, she reappeared this season as well. So two matches running.
There, I didn't see it. I didn't see her this season. It may have been this season I saw her. In fact, it was beginning of the season, wasn't it? About a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well,
so it may have been that game, but
it got to the end of one season and the start of the next, I think, from memory. Yeah. And the whole stand, the whole support.
Yeah,
were just wetting themselves laughing because it was.
Everyone started elbowing. Look!
Absolutely uncanny. Yeah.
Excellent, great stuff. You thought perhaps she would have tried to hide or change her identity a little bit after the first one, but perhaps she was enjoying it.
Yeah, she came back. She put on a few pounds.
Came back for more. Pinky, thank you, Gnome. Pinky, the funniest thing you've ever seen at a football match, please.
This is going to sound horribly immodest, but it was the day Sam Allardyce was encouraging the Hamburg manager to give me a game. Picture the scene. We're in a little town called Flensburg in northern Germany, right on the Danish border.
Mm-hmm.
And alcohol was involved. We'd been on the sauce all day. And we'd gone to watch West Ham play Hamburg, and a coachload of us. Of course, we turn up at the little ground in this lovely little fishing village. And lo and behold, no, we haven't got tickets, so we just stroll in. And me and another lad, we got into the corporate hospitality area somehow. We just blagged our way in. Long story short, an hour solid boozing. We got rumbled. Bob, bless him, managed to get the appropriate wristband, which meant he could stay in. I wasn't that smart. So they actually literally threw me out. They picked me up and chucked me pitch side. Well, luckily, Jack Collison was just coming out to sit on the bench for the second half. So Jack, how you doing, mate? And he said, yeah, I'm okay, fella. And he's looking a bit nervous because I'm twice his size and clearly steaming. And I was chatting to him as we go down towards the West Ham bench, where you've got You know, Andy Carroll sat there, Noble, Nolan, etc. And Allardyce, who just looked me square in the eye and just said, "Keep walking, son." And I thought, yeah, I'm not going to muck with you. You look like you can handle yourself. And there was a spot on the end of the Hamburg bench. And I thought, I'll watch the second half from there. Yeah. You know, I'm fairly tanked by this stage. I just plonk myself on the Hamburg bench. So they've got half a dozen substitutes and Thomas Fink, their manager, down the far end. And Sam, bless him, I mean, he got into the swing of it. You know, he was calling across at the Hamburg manager to give me a game. Yeah. You know, and I'm turning to the Hamburg manager. Hamburg were losing at that stage. And I'm going, look, I'm your game changer. I can win this for you. I can do this for you. And he wouldn't give me a game. So if he ever applies to be the manager at West Ham, it's a no from me, because I'd have turned that round. I really would have done. So that, you know, not very modest, I'm afraid, but we all had a giggle out of that one, that's for sure.
That kind of reminds me of a pre-season trip we were on in Austria. Gnome, you were there, of course, when Bob the Hat approached Valon Barami in a similar state. Again, funny enough, referring to Valon Barami again. And if you remember that, he approached him. He was entirely in a similar condition to how Pinky has just described himself.
Bob's hat made more sense than Bob was making at that point. And yeah, he was steaming, wasn't he? He was
good stuff. If I can find a photo, I'm sure I've got a picture somewhere, and if so, I'll drop that on the finished video. But thank you, Pinky, for that excellent recollection. Rio, over to you. The funniest thing you've ever seen at a football match, my friend.
Okay, I've actually got a couple of ideas, but one I think you're going to use, so I'll leave that for you, mate.
Okay.
I've also got another German trip and a member of our erstwhile forum, an alcohol-related one, which I'll leave. But that was hilarious. So I'm going to go. In the late 80s, we had a run of awful, dire games where just nothing ever happened. And I think it was Oxford at home. It's absolute turgid. And the ball, the breaking play, ref blew for something innocuous. Ball's run towards a chicken run. And this guy just leapt over the wall, hit the ball first time, it's flew into the top corner and the whole ground has erupted. I think he's only shot on target in the whole game. And he's obviously going absolutely ballistic. His mates come on and joined him. They danced around in pirouettes with each other before they got frog marched off by the police. But yeah, it was the highlight of the day. It was a quality strike. I've never seen one better.
That's talking of pitch invasions. I think most of us would probably be too young to have been there, but of course, I'm sure we've all seen the famous picture of the streaker in the snow at West Ham dancing to the Mike Oldfield Christmas song. Gnome, you'll know what it's called.
In Dolce Jubilo.
That's the one. Apparently, it was played at half time.
Cambridge, wasn't it?
That's it, yeah. And the guy stripped off in the snow, came on and danced a merry jig to everyone's delight at half time. Again, I'm sure there's plenty of pictures on the web of that one if anyone wants to have a look. So yeah, I mean we've had a few, haven't we? I mean, Ria, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, so if I don't say it, feel free to come back afterwards. But I'm fairly certain none of you will be referring to this one, because the funniest thing I ever saw was many years ago now. Before I was old enough to be allowed to travel to West Ham on my own, I had a season ticket at Southend when I was 12 or 13, because it was only up the road and they generally used to play games on a Friday night. These were the days when Southend used to sort of bounce between Division 3 and Division 4 as it was. And they used to have a journeyman forward up there, a guy called Steve Phillips, who spent 4 years at Root Saul between 1982 and 1986. But anyway, there was we were stuck in the West Stand at one of these particular night games. And the West Stand was, of course, famous for consisting of seats that Southend bought second-hand from Manchester City and pieced together to form a stand. So you can imagine it was a rickety old stand. But there was a guy standing close to us, a supporter, who, again, had probably had one or two more than he perhaps should have had prior to the start of the match. And he was giving Phillips an absolute torrid time, just, dog's abuse from the word go. He clearly didn't like him. And Phillips was noticing what was happening. And at half-time, Steve Phillips, as he left the pitch, he turned round to this guy and flicked him a V sign as he went off. Now, of course, as you can imagine, this was a red rag to a bull as far as this particular supporter was concerned. And so as soon as the second half recommenced, it started again, this abuse, and it went on and on and on. And in the end, everyone sort of thinks that Eric Cantona broke the mould when he jumped into the stand to kick us. Well, didn't actually jump into the stand, did he? He just kicked the guy from outside as he went past. On this particular occasion, Steve Phillips leapt over the advertising boards, grabbed the fan round the throat, and they were standing there for about 2 minutes just having this incredible row. The game was going on in the background for a bit anyway, until the referee actually stopped it. And the row was something, they were saying, I remember Phillips saying to this guy, get some boots on, son, and we'll see if you can do any better, while he's got him by the throat. And the guy sort of saying to him, well, get them then, and I probably will do. I can't do much worse. A bit similar, I suppose, in a way to Lee Chapman being withdrawn, for a supporter when Harry Redknapp did something similar. But yeah, that was a very funny moment. The other one I think would be when Gareth Southgate took the. Is this the one, Rio? Got it.
Yeah.
When Gareth Southgate, of course, took the penalty for Aston Villa in the quarter-final of the Carling Cup, 1998-99, I think it was, season. And it's the only time I've ever heard a home crowd cheer loudly the announcement of an opposition player being named to take a penalty. And of course, as we know, what happened? Southgate, who had missed one for England in the semi-final of Euro 96 2 or 3 years earlier, promptly missed the penalty, and we won the penalty shootout. Of course, the long shot of that was we didn't get through to the semi-final because that was the game in which Manny Omoyini played, and the match was ordered to be replayed, and we were subsequently beaten in the replay. In terms of surreal moments, who remembers a guy called Mohammed Shahid Nazir? Anyone? No, doesn't ring any bells?
Not ringing any bells.
Sorry, Rio?
£1 Fishman, was that?
Well done.
Oh,
Full
right.
marks for that. We arrived at the press room one day at West Ham to find that the £1 Fishman was in there, and we had a good chat that day before the game, and he told us all about his little business in Green Street, and we have a photo. We got a photo taken with him, with each of us holding a £1 coin. So that was completely surreal. The other really surreal moment I remember was Liverpool fans who, of course, were well known for jibbing in over the years, running through the press room to avoid paying an entrance fee. Yeah. Never seen anyone else do it in all my years of being in the press room. But, of course, who else? It had to be Liverpool fans, did it not? But anyway, there you go.
I have to confess that on one occasion I did actually wander into the aforementioned press room, drunk as a lord.
I remember it.
Yeah, and I was genuinely lost. I was trying to get out of the ground.
And once we got rid of you, everyone was coming up to me, do you know him? Is he with you? And I'm saying, well, I know him. So he was just lost. He took the wrong turn on the stairs, honest. I wasn't trying to sneak him in or anything,
Yeah, it was very easy to get into the press room at the old bowling ground. Not so now. It's like a military operation trying to get in there. But anyway, some funny memories from yesteryear. Thank you, team. Finally tonight, we are going to wrap up with a look at From the Forum, and we're going to tie it in with the KUMB Awards, the 23rd KUMB Awards, which are now open this week. You can vote in 12 categories, ranging from Player of the Year through to your most memorable match, best goal of the season, worst player, greatest moment, biggest disappointment, all those things. Go onto the site now. You'll see links on the forum and on the homepage linking you to that. So get over there and drop us your votes and let us know what you think. The polls will be open all week. But one of the polls is for, we have a category entitled Hackett of the Year, which, as it says on the tin, is a category in memory of Keith Hackett, the idiot who sent off Tony Gow in the 1991 FA Cup semi-final and effectively cost West Ham a place at Wembley that day. We have just running through the nominations. Bitter. Sorry, Pinky?
Not that we're bitter.
No, not that we're bitter 30 years later and remember it, of course. But this year's nominations, I'll run through them quickly and the reasons why they've been nominated, and these are nominations from the KUMB forum members. We asked for everyone's thoughts on this last week, and the 9 favourites anyway were Karen Brady for continuing to damage the club's reputation via her tabloid newspaper column. We've got COVID-19, which obviously resulted in the longest season in history. Gelson Fernandes is in there. I nominated him for snubbing West Ham's advances and joining Tottenham in the January transfer window. We have the IFAB for making a mockery of the handball law. Manuel Pellegrini for spending millions and leaving the club on the cusp of the relegation zone. Socios, that highly controversial blockchain platform that was eventually dumped very quietly and shuffled aside a few weeks ago. The West Ham board are in there for threatening litigious action against Sky Sports' Sunday supplement programme. I'm sure you will remember that one. VAR, of course, one of the possibly the big favourite for destroying the simple pleasure of celebrating a goal. And finally, he's already received a nomination as part of the board, but he's got his own nomination, David Gold this year, who, as I'm sure you might remember, liked a social media post earlier this season which referred to West Ham fans as belligerents and morons. And then, of course, later...
Well, he's half right, to be fair. You know.
and of course, later, in the wake of the protests that were carried out by Hammers United, said that promises that he made weren't actually promises in the first place. So David Gold's a good outside bet for taking the award this year. Over to you, panel, for your own particular... I mean, perhaps one of those is who you're going to be voting for, or it might be someone else. Pinky, first of all, who's going to be your Hackett of the year this year?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give it Brady every year. I can't give it Sullivan and Gold every year. I mean, it just gets monotonous. So I'll give them all a year off. It's VAR for me.
Yep.
In a game where many supporters are already openly discussing what's the point in it all, and of course Premier League fans saying it, meanwhile Rochdale fans are killing themselves laughing. But when everyone feels that the dice are already loaded in so-called big clubs' favour, now what we're seeing, clubs like Manchester United getting VAR decisions. Was it 7 or 8 goals that were denied opponents this season? Yep. And the spontaneity that it removes from, is it a goal, you cheer? Oh no, it's gone. And you stood there in the ground at some grim northern overcast day and you're thinking, why am I doing this? You've just seen a great goal. You can't celebrate. You stood there for 3 or 4 minutes while they're farting around just to appease viewers at home. And whoever in the lawmakers thinks this is a good idea, guess again, because it's killing it. It's killing it. And all this whole concept of, we've got to be absolutely certain we get the right result and all the rest of it. What a load of cobblers. I see more fouls at corner kicks in a game that should result in penalties if they were applying the law. That just simply get ignored because they take the view, well, every game would finish 19-17 if they actually applied the laws of the game. But no, if it's an offside, oh no, we'll get the geometry set out and we'll look at it for 2 hours. What a load of tosh. Get rid of the damn thing.
VAR for Pinky then. Thank you, Pinky. Rio, how about you? What's your Hackett of the year, or who is your Hackett of the year?
I'm afraid I'm towing Pinky's party line there.
Yeah.
It's VAR. They're taking a system which is like abysmal anyway. They're taking the passion, the emotion out of football.
Yep.
And they're taking the entertainment out of the entertainment business. I'd love to see how they make these decisions. They've got a set square, a protractor, the old Atari computers used to get in the 80s. They're using that kind of matrix system on that, trying to find a toenail out of place. Yeah. They're sitting in the back of the truck, 8 cans of stare on a kebab, trying to think of ways to disallow goals and make everyone furious. It's not good. It's not entertainment.
Would it, if they adopted a system more along the lines of the way they do it in cricket, whereas it had to be a clear and obvious error, would you be more inclined to see it stay?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm very much against technology, especially in football. Football's not the kind of game that you can apply technology to.
Goal line technology?
Sorry, mate?
Goal line technology?
Well, we're saying that. Like I said in the previous episode, we're the only country that won the World Cup and will spend 40-odd years trying to prove we didn't. This is part of the game. It's a talking point. We've been talking about 66 for nearly 50-odd years now.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't take away the talking points of the game. The things that people talk about in the pubs for years on end. Let's just keep things organic and natural.
Okay, good point. I guess, as you say, the main talking points now are just VAR and the ridiculousness of the decisions and the length of time, as Pinky referred to, that it's taken to reach those decisions. But thank you, Rio. Gnome, are you going to make it a hat trick and also go for VAR, or do you have someone else in mind?
It's tempting to go for David Gold. I mean, I'd like to point out that I am in no way belligerent, and I'll deck anyone who says I am. But
I only said half right. There was another category. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna make it a clean sweep of us three.
Okay.
If I could throw in an addendum, it's VAR and PGMOL. Yes. Again, I started on 12 minutes and we're getting towards the end, and I'll carry on. Refereeing standard refereeing in the top flight of this country are absolutely appalling. And rather than do anything about that, they've said, "Oh well, VAR will correct all that." Well, it doesn't, because the same people are operating VAR as are on the pitch. And how many times have we seen Liverpool, something happened at Liverpool, for example, where VAR doesn't get used, and you think, well, if that gets VAR'd, surely that's going to be disallowed or allowed or whatever. But it's conveniently not. Things are conveniently not noticed, even when it is used.
Yeah.
PGMOL are just a sort of it's there purely for the protection of referees. So few people ever get relegated out of that so-called select group.
Yeah.
FIFA statutes and regulations say that the referee has to be in the total charge of the FA, which PGMOL was set up because the FA couldn't afford to do that and pay professional referees because they had a Wembley to pay for. It's the whole thing is it stinks. VAR is like, somebody comes out of a car crash and they've got a severed artery pumping blood all over the place, and VAR is an elastoplast they stick on a scratch on his face. It's just not addressing the problem.
Yeah.
I'll join in with the VAR thing.
Yeah. If the panel here is anything to go by, it looks like we have a runaway winner in the Hackett of the Year trophy, category this season. I'm just going to dip into the forum just to see what some of the members on the KUMB forum have been saying. Iron Horse agrees. VAR, of course, for sucking the life out of the game. Funky Chicken, however, says it's got to be COVID for me, not for disrupting the season, but for disrupting the momentum the fans were building for the protests. It definitely had Sully rattled, and unfortunately, COVID has let them off the hook. Mega Ron says that in a year when the world is Mega Ron says in a year when the world is struggling through a pandemic for the first time in many a lifetime, VAR is the winner. And Sherbet Dab changes tack slightly. Here we go. Here's a different one. David Sullivan, he voted for, in his words, the continued and distinguished service to the pound shop version of the South American transfer market. Sergei, this making his very first post on the KUMB forum, so this was a pretty good introduction, says, it's very difficult to argue against VAR and all the shithousery it's brought in general to the game, but for me it's got to be the GSB versus Sky debacle. Astonishing arrogance and petulance from Sullivan and co, trying to silence anyone who dared to criticise their running of our great club. I found the whole episode squirmingly embarrassing and encompassed everything I despised about these folks. That's not actually what he said, but I've changed that as I'm reading. Another vote for renaming the award to the Brady. He says, failing that, she should be up for a lifetime Hackett Achievement Award, which is a first. Billy Dino voted, who's one of our quite contrary members on the forum. Billy Dino said Pablo Fornals. And SH replied to that by saying, I'm going to go for Billy's vote for Fornals. Hammer Ted, VAR is a confusing nuisance that may or may not prove beneficial to the game in the future. COVID-19 was something that none of us could have ever foreseen and to which we must learn to adapt. The latter two don't make me angry. He says, Roberto, however, makes me want to snap the necks of cute puppies in front of a class full of primary school kids. So for him, Roberto, I'm sure that our errant goalkeeper might feature in the worst signing and worst player of the season category somehow. And finally, SH wrapping up by saying, can we not rename the award the Brady in honour of her continued services to all that is wrong with West Ham United? So there you go. Once again, the Hackett of the Year award, one of the 12 categories in this year's KUMB Awards, which you can vote for now. Visit kumb.com. There's links on the homepage or via the forum. There's a sticky at the top of the general discussion forum, which gives you all the details on how you can vote. It will take you no more than 60 seconds. It is our 23rd annual year this year, going right back to 1997 when John Hartson, I think, was our very first player of the year. Declan Rice, of course, the outstanding favourite this year, although Angelo Ogbonna or even Michail Antonio might have something to say about that yet. That is just about it for tonight. I'm looking at my watch, and we're less than an hour and a half in. This is something unheard of before. So well done.
And nobody's called Pinky Cute yet.
Yes. Well done, team, for the brevity of your answers tonight. It's good to keep it fairly short, but thank you to my team for your company once again, guys. That's Rio, Gnome, and the Pink Palermo. Thank you, team, and thank you, of course, to you, our viewers, for tuning in as you do each and every week. Oh, hopefully you do anyway. We're going to be back again next week for another irreverent look at the latest West Ham news and transfer rumours, and also from the wider world of football. So until then, come on, I'm doing this wrong. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons. I'm not doing all that shit.